As many New York Knicks fans have seen, the team re-signed Precious Achiuwa to a one-year, $6 million contract an hour ago, and we have to break down the real reason why this happened. So what's up, guys? Welcome back to Knicks Digest. It's Chris here. And guys, I'm so thrilled there's Knicks news. It is so nice to actually have something to talk about, and there is a big reason why the New York Knicks signed Precious Achiuwa and why he signed to this contract, and we're going to waste no time jumping right into it. Because when the Knicks signed Precious Achiuwa to a one-year, $6 million deal, my mind instantly went to, he's gone by February. I have no doubt in my mind that the New York Knicks signed Precious Achiuwa for two reasons. One, Achiuwa is a very solid NBA role player. We saw it happen in New York. We really saw the fact that he can improve and that he's got a higher ceiling, that if he gets the chance, he can absolutely break out and become a very, very solid NBA player. And the other thing is, he's more of a power forward than a center. Now, the New York Knicks signed him to be their backup center for the first few months of the season before they eventually trade him. I am not saying I think Precious is going to get traded. I am saying I'm willing to bet everything that the New York Knicks move Precious Achiuwa before, if not at, the 2025 trade deadline. Now, let's break down why I think this is, starting with something from Fred Katz. Now, as Fred Katz mentions, Precious Achiuwa has waived his bird right veto, and normally a player of Achiuwa's type who signs or re-signs a one-year contract receives the right to veto any deal, but since Achiuwa waived his, he can be traded without the ability to veto a single trade. I think that's pretty weird that Precious Achiuwa would do that unless one thing was on his mind. He knows that he is not in an ideal situation with the Knicks. Precious's best basketball came when he started at power forward for the Knicks when Julius went out with the shoulder injury. In that time, Precious put up 10 points per game, 11 rebounds, and shot over 50% from the field. He showed that he was a very solid power forward, and that though he wasn't the greatest shooter and actively not too great of a shooter at all, shooting 26.3% from three this season, he showed that he was at his best when he was running the 4 slot. Now, he can be an undersized center, and it has worked in the past. For instance, he held Joel Embiid to 1 point in the fourth quarter of a crucial playoff game in the first round between the Knicks and the 76ers, which for my money was the best playoff series all year. Now, in the process of doing that, Precious showed that he does belong in NBA rotations. And he'll be in the Knicks rotation, don't get it twisted, because when you look at Mitchell Robinson, you know he's your starting center, but you have to know that there is going to be a backup, and you have to have some insurance because he does have some injury issues. He's good to miss at least 20 games per season, and you're going to need someone who can start at the 5. Now, the Knicks can run small ball and have Julius at the 5 at times, and then OG at the 4, and McHale at the 3, Devo at the 2, and then Brunson at the point guard slot, and have OG kind of guard good big men like an Embiid, like Jokic, something that Tom Thibodeau likes. But at the same time, the Knicks want a true rim protector, and they obviously have that with Mitchell Robinson, but you need another one off the bench for a Tom Thibodeau defense, and Precious is not exactly a rim protector. Now, he can do it. It's not like he's a terrible shot blocker. He's a good one, but he's just not a rim-protecting type player. He's not exactly what the Knicks are looking for. In an ideal world, if you're Tom Thibodeau, you just want a different variation of a player very similar to Mitchell Robinson, the same way the Knicks went out and got Nerlens Noel as a backup for Mitch a few years back. Obviously, they tried to play Hartenstein like that, and he just wasn't fitting in, so they let him adjust, and he played a lot better and was awesome and is now getting paid a ton of money by Oklahoma City. But with Precious, he's more of a power forward who's going to have to play center for a bit, but they are going to move him. And Fred Katz, I brought this up in a recent video, and you can go check that out for a deeper dive into this. But Fred Katz brought up some other stuff in a recent article of his, and let's take a look. Now, the Knicks, according to Katz, and he's right about this, they don't have too many attractive trade pieces remaining after the Mikal Bridges deal. They own a bunch of second-round picks. The Detroit Pistons protected 2025 first-rounder and the Wizards 2025 first-rounder. Both of them are depreciating, but neither of them may ever convey because both teams are terrible, especially as Katz mentioned, who did cover the Wizards for a while. The Wizards are on an unrelenting mission to dive to the bottom of the standings, which as they should be doing. Tank, Wizards, just tank as much as you can. And New York can swap first rounders with another team in 2026, which obviously isn't so alluring considering the Knicks are a contender. The Knicks will be near the top of the standings in that season, most likely. And then they have their 2030 pick. Now, outside of that, the Knicks don't have the most assets in the world. Remember, they also traded that 2021 draft pick, or the 2031 draft pick, for Mikal Bridges. That was part of the deal. Now, this kind of continues because Fred Katz mentions that pair Achiuwa with whoever you might want to sign for the mid-level exception, and the Knicks could make a deadline deal work where they trade away 0 players in their rotation. None of the players that they see as key, such as the starting 5 and then DiVincenzo, Josh Hart, and Deuce McBride. Those are the 3 guys. Now, you could also use some of that mid-level exception. It might put you at close to that second apron, but you're going to be over the first apron most likely anyway. So you're going to have to deal with it. I trust Brock Aller to get that cap situation right. And you could bring someone in who makes around $12 million because they don't have the salaries for it at the moment, and they can't build that trade today. However, now with Precious's $6 million, now you use that mid-level exception, you get $6 more million worth of a player who's probably just going to sit on your bench the whole time, 1-year contract. You have tradable assets along with second-round picks that teams will bite on giving a center away that either they don't really need or they just don't have too much interest in. Now, or they just want to trade for separate reasons, such as, one that comes to mind is Jalen Duren. And then, obviously, if it comes to Duren, the Knicks, they wouldn't need to sign someone else in the mid-level exception. Duren makes around $4 or $5 million, which aligns pretty well with Precious's $6 million, I might add. That is a move the New York Knicks could certainly make. I think that Leon Rose would love to make that move. It would certainly cost giving the Pistons their pick back. It might also cost the Wizards one, and you do have to consider doing that when you look at where the Knicks are and the fact that getting them a good backup center like Jalen Duren absolutely makes them a contender. And Jalen Duren is also as good of Mitchell Robinson insurance, I lost the word for a second, could possibly get. So I think that would make sense as a trade. But there's other names that I want to talk about. One of them, obviously, is Walker Kessler, the other being Nick Richards, and then also Robert Williams, but mainly because he's making $12 million. So we're going to do that. We're going to jump into those. We're going to do it quickly. Now, real quick, guys, let's just take a look at some trades I cooked up just to kind of show where the salaries are at. Now, the Knicks cannot take in more salary doing this trade, but they won't have to because Walker Kessler makes less than Achiuwa. There's a world where the Knicks can get away with giving that Wizards pick, a second-round pick, and Achiuwa in exchange for Walker Kessler. Boom. Awesome backup center for you right there. And in case you're curious, these are Kessler's stats on the season. Kessler put up last year 8 points, 7.5 rebounds, 2.4 blocks per game, 0.9 assists, or 0.9 assists per game, half a steal a game, and also can shoot a mid-range pretty well. Had great numbers, just turned 23, great advanced stats, especially when you're a center on a losing team. That's not the easiest thing to do, so shout out to Kessler for being able to do that. Now, another name that comes to mind, who I'll throw the stats at you right now, is Nick Richards, who I mentioned. Another young guy, a bit older, definitely a great Mitchell Robinson replacement. Very similar, not replacement, but backup and insurance policy if Mitch goes down with an injury. Gets over a block per game, puts up 10 points, scores the ball well, rebounds well, both on offense and on defense. Obviously, with him, he wasn't able to defy the fact that he was on a bad team and put up great advanced numbers, but they were not bad, especially considering how much of a mess the Hornets were last year. Also shot 69% from the field, which is just a very nice number. And if you then look, because we're not done cooking up mock trades, everyone, the Knicks could trade Precious. They might have to add a second rounder in there, so I did it just in the fact that they might have to, they might not have to, and get back Richards in exchange. $1 million in difference. $1 million in difference. Obviously, the Hornets, they might rather go with Precious because he's got more potential than Richards, and the Knicks need more of a sure, real center, not some hybrid like Precious, which is no shade towards Precious. It's just the Knicks would need some more real center like Nick Richards. I think this is a mutually beneficial trade. The more I think about it, the less I think the Knicks need to add a second-round pick. And knowing Leon Rose, because he's a trade demon, he might pull off getting a second-round pick in the process. Now, we're going to look at one more trade, and this actually doesn't work by the way that I showed it. But just imagine that the Precious side of it, where you see Precious going to the Trailblazers, there's just $6 million worth of some player that the Knicks signed to their mid-level exception to add up to that $12 million. The Knicks also would get a second-round pick back from this because you're giving expiring contracts for Robert Williams, a player everyone knows the Blazers don't need and also has injury concerns of his own. And you better believe we're going to take a look at these stats from Robert Williams right now. Didn't play much of this season due to an injury, but when he got back to the floor in confusing minutes, honestly, put up 7 points per game, 6 rebounds, less than an assist, but obviously he's not there for that, and averaged 1.2 blocks and steals per game, so 2.4 stocks, which is very nice. Gets a lot of assisted twos, also great at getting second chance points. That's where most of the other ones come from that aren't assisted. Good defensive box plus minus. Positive value over replacement, despite the fact that he hardly played this year. So Robert Williams, an efficient player, also undersized, but we know he plays bigger than his size anyway, so that is something the Knicks can consider. Those are 3 guys that the Knicks could definitely go for. Another one, as I mentioned, Jalen Duren. I'll probably do another whole video on Duren in the near future, but I did want to break this down because this is what this Precious Achiuwa signing means. It doesn't necessarily mean, okay, he's our backup center, case closed. No, the Knicks are going to use their second-round picks. They're going to use Precious's $6 million. They might use a mid-level exception from another guy that they want to sign, and hopefully they do, because on top of that, it just adds bench depth. So why not do it if you're not going to hit the second apron? They're going to have to give out more money than they'll take in any trade because they're past that first apron, and that's the rule. So you have to look at that, but I think this is a great move by the Knicks. The expiring deal makes it so important because if a team doesn't love Achiuwa, they really could just lose him in a few months and get $6 million in cap space. Great job by Leon Rose. Awesome signing. Way to hold out with Precious and kind of find out what's going on. Shout out to Precious, a New Yorker from Nigeria. So you got to give him credit. I'm looking forward to seeing what he's got this season. If he plays better, the better the players that the Knicks can get in return for him also. So make sure you're rooting for Precious. Also because he's a Knick, and once a Knick, always a Knick, and he's currently a Knick. But guys, let me know your thoughts down below. Am I putting on a tinfoil hat a little too much, or do you guys think this is correct? I'm like 1,000% sure it is, though. Guys, let me know. Like, comment, subscribe. Have a great day, guys. Go Knicks. Precious is back, baby.